Welcome to Entering the Darkness podcast. This is Colin. Of course, Dan isn't able to make it tonight, our co-host. He's kind of come down with something, so unfortunately he can't make it, but it's okay. We do have Joe Troutman here, who is known throughout the San Diego County and throughout all these different things as a well-known promoter for a lot of different metal bands, especially Ramona Main Stage and other venues like that. So, Joe, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no
So,
problem, no problem, man. I guess just to start it out, like, what got you into promoting?
whew. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out if there's a shorter story. Um, basically, I think when I was growing up, parents wouldn't let me listen to the music I wanted to. I got my car,
Uh-huh.
started, learning about Metallica and Ozzy and all
Uh-huh.
that, and then one thing snowballed and started getting into the local music scene.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I was carrying my buddy's drums in, setting up, and I'd start bringing people out to his shows. And I think by myself, I was probably 20, 19, something like that. I ended
Uh-huh.
up selling 105 tickets to one of their shows on
Oh,
my own.
sweet.
I
Uh-huh.
was just super enthusiastic, super pumped. And it's funny because it was a big competition for Battle of the Bands, and the winner got to go on Norman Jack's show, Another State of Mind, on Rock
Uh-huh.
105 at 11:30 on Sunday night. Man, what
Uh-huh.
an awesome prize that was. So
Uh-huh.
yeah,
All right.
so yeah, I kind of had the niche, and um, yeah, it snowballed. One thing led to another. I was helping out local bands, putting shows together, because it seemed like there were a lot of really good bands I liked, but
Uh-huh.
nobody would put shows on. No one was booking them, and
Hmm.
yeah, I just didn't mean to do it, but I end
Uh-huh.
up putting little shows together at this dinky old like bar ish like country bar and
Uh-huh.
called Del Diaz Country Store
Okay.
uh, by Lake Hodges. And so I did a couple shows there, packed house. I
Uh-huh.
started doing stuff at Jolt and Joe's pool hall in Escondido,
Uh-huh.
and just there was a really good momentum. There's a really good vibe back then, and then the local shows. One of them knew a touring band, and then like a baby touring band, and then they got an agent. Then the agent starts calling me, and
Man.
yeah, it just it was very very organic. It wasn't something I meant to do.
Well, okay. Uh,
Yeah.
See, sometimes these things just fall in your lap, man. It's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I wanted to be a roadie. I wanted to go travel and tour, and
Uh-huh.
I just wanted to carry someone's drums in, and
Uh-huh.
that would have been my excuse to go see some good music and see the
Uh-huh.
country, and I never got to be a roadie. So
Aw. I
yeah,
got to be for a little bit one time back in like was it '03 when I first moved out to San Diego the first time. And
okay,
there was this band that used to hang out that used to because if you know where the Stats Coffee House is, like the original one over on Adams
oh
Avenue.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yep,
There was a because I was really good friends with the sound guy Louis. He actually I was like 19 years old. He took me under his wing, showed me how to do all these different things. I was the only one that was going up there with a bass and distortion. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? All that. But yeah, he there was this band that had played this band called the X Friends, which was like something you'd never think that I would ever be into that kind of music. But I liked them. Their drummer was it was like this folk band or something like that, and their drummer was like, "Hey, why don't you be the drum roadie?" He taught me how to set up drums. So,
That's
hmm
awesome, man. Yeah,
hmm
it's cool. It's so much fun, you know.
hmm
So So
man,
it's funny. Speaking of that,
hmm
I always think, as metalheads, we always have a couple guilty pleasure bands that people would look at
right.
and are you kidding me? You
hmm
have any guilty pleasure bands that kind of come to your mind?
I don't necessarily say these as guilty pleasures because I mean, I like it, so why would I be guilty of it? I mean,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
like I do really enjoy the K-pop group Blackpink and also BTS. I'm not afraid to admit that.
Hey, no, no, that's cool, man. Um, one thing I was brought up by my parents. They said, if you ever get invited to go out and see something or a show, if
Mhm.
someone ever invites you, go do it. Because you never
Right.
know if you're gonna like it or not like it. And
Uh-huh.
and the worst thing that happens is you get a story out of it.
hmm
And um, it's funny because they took me to see the Monkees one time, and
Uh-huh.
I did not want to go. I was younger.
Mhm.
God, it was so much fun, man. It
It
was a good
was.
time.
Those are
And I've
good.
seen all sorts of weird bands I never thought I'd like that just ended up just really being awesome. Good
hmm
fun. So,
Definitely. Well, there was one like it was I want to say it was 2008 maybe, back in at the DTE Energy Music Theater, which to me will always be fucking Pine Knob. It always will be in Michigan, right?
mm,
Um, we my buddy was like, "We're gonna go see Scorpions," and I'm like, "Scorpions?" And then
mhm.
I was like, "Okay." I was like, you know, at first I was just kind of like, "Oh, great, it's gonna be a bunch of dudes that with like the balding, and I can't, I get there and I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like I get to see freaking scorpions. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? When I got in there, you know what I mean? It was just like get to see the and the big amphitheater, and I'm like, man, I might never get to see these guys again, and I got to see freaking scorpions, you know?
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
saw them a few times. Just they were on tour with bands that I liked, and it
Hmm.
was weird because like they do one year would be a fantastic killer set, and then the
Mm.
next would be weird, and I'm like, damn it,
Hmm.
dude. And but then the next year
Hmm.
would be really good again. So,
Hmm.
White Snake was one that caught me off guard. I had did not want to see White Snake, had no intention of seeing White Snake. They opened up for
Hmm.
somebody, and oh my god, they stole the show. They're so good. David
Hmm.
Coverdale had some pipes on him.
Covered it up, definitely. Oh man,
Yeah.
dude, hell yeah, hell yeah. Well, when you got into the Rona main stage kind of thing and like doing other shows, I think like maybe like areas like the Jumping Turtle, all those different places like that. Um, like what band that you got in like even Ramona like did you enjoy the most bringing? Mhm.
Whew. It's tough because I had friendships with some bands. I did it
Hmm.
for 20 years, and
Hmm.
I had some good friendships with bands. I had bands that I wasn't expecting, like just blew my mind. Um, Devin Townsend was one that I wasn't,
Mm.
it was just a wild show. It was super fun. Moonspell was
Ooh.
another one from Portugal. God, those
Hmm.
guys put on just an amazing show, especially at Ramona because they had a lot of projections at the time, and
Hmm.
it was just super tight production, and
Hmm.
I like that band. It's a cool band. Uh, God, there's one, and it is what the heck was it? It wasn't Creator.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Really?
Bumblefoot was one that blew
Bumblefoot.
my mind
Yeah.
too when he opened up for
Mm.
Yngwie Malmsteen.
Mm.
Into Eternity, they were really good friends of mine. I like booking them a lot. Warbringer
Hmm.
became good friends. So like I said, I enjoyed all the shows. There were some that I didn't know. Oh, Hellstar,
All-Star. Hmm.
Hellstar. Yes, okay, that's actually a band that really propelled me to push into being a promoter because I became a big fan. I met the singer,
Hmm.
and then I super dug him, and I became good friends with James. He actually lived in Escondido for a while,
Hmm.
and I was floored by how good the music was, how technical it was.
Hmm.
How his vocals were just absolutely killer, like especially on Nosferatu, man. I don't know if
Hmm.
you've ever heard that album. There's a billion albums out there, so I'm not like thinking that's weird if you never heard it, but um, I got that band back together um, to do, and I got him to do a show, and I put
Hmm.
together as my first metal fest, as a Burning Star Metal Fest.
Brainstar.
So,
Okay.
and I tried to bring them out once a year, and yeah, James, that whole band just always floored me, and I became good friends with them. I managed them for a while. I ended up getting them a record deal. I ended up getting them a tour again. So
Hmm.
it was one of those things that everything came around. God, man, now you're going down that rabbit hole, and I'm like, and Nevermore, man, that was like one of my favorite bands ever.
Nevermore.
I
Those guys
love
were freaking
Nevermore.
cool. Those guys were
So,
freaking so good live.
oh, dude, Jeff Loomis and Warl Dane. Oh
Hmm.
my God, man.
Hmm.
That was one of my favorite bands when I was like, before I was ever like promoting booking. That was like the band that got
Hmm.
me into underground metal.
Hmm.
And my goal, if I ever could have booked Nevermore, would have been like to me booking like Ozzy Osbourne, at
Hmm.
that time.
Oh
And
yeah.
then I got to become friends with them, and they came over to the house, um, and it was super cool. And me and Warl Dane kept in touch, and it kind of hurt. He would message me every Christmas, just saying hi, Merry Christmas, and when he passed away, like it was kind of close to Christmas, and it kind of stung for me a bit.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I remember getting to see, was it when I saw Nevermore, it was at House of Blues in San Diego. I can't even remember what the lineup was. Oh, it was, yeah, it was like, I think Chimera. There's like Arch Enemy, Nevermore, all that. And when I saw Nevermore, I was just like totally just floored. I was like, holy crap, these guys are so good. You know what I mean? You know?
Oh man, yeah. Jeff Loomis and World In, that's it's an Aussie Randy Rhodes, man.
Mhm.
It's a Jimmy Page and oh my god, man, it's a Sunday night. Why how Robert Plant.
Power
Sorry.
Plant. Hmm.
It's just they were just that duo that had that writing chemistry and that
Hmm.
showmanship chemistry, and I really think they were one of the best pairings ever. And it's
Hmm.
sad that they had the other issues that tore the band apart.
Right.
So
Hmm. And that Pat O'Brien ended up leaving them for Cannibal Corpse. Although as they said, that Pat O'Brien, you could always tell his heart wasn't in it. That it was more he wanted to do something more brutal. You know what I mean? Which he
mm,
did. But then went a little bit more Looney Tunes, I think, later on after that, after what happened a few years ago. But
yeah.
it's all good. But
Yeah, everyone goes through their stories, everyone goes through their journeys, you
yeah, that's
know.
true. That's true.
So yeah.
But he's back. He's back. I can't remember what band what he's in now. He's in. There's another one that he resurfaced in Florida somewhere. But I remember also I think the first time I ever actually met you in person was at one of the Elvati shows in Ramona. You
I
know,
love those shows. Yeah.
hmm and I actually got to like surprisingly, I actually got to like I think the second time that I saw them there when you brought them,
Mm,
I was hanging out with Shrigel out in front the whole time.
mm,
Him and I
nice.
got. I got to meet Kay. I got to meet Mary really quick. She was trying to get some alcohol, but I guess it was like already too late to buy the alcohol. But
Mm.
she was really humble. I met everybody except Anna. I didn't get to meet Anna.
That's probably because I took her over to grab a burrito. I
Ah,
always told her she was my secret Swiss girlfriend, and
uh,
I adored her, and
uh-huh.
I mean we were friends.
Mhm,
Uh, and when Elvite kind of split up and her and Merlin
mhm,
went off, I never really, gosh, to be honest, I never really gave him a chance afterwards.
mhm,
Never heard it, and I never searched for it. But
mhm.
yeah, that was such a cool band, man. I loved all that folk metal stuff, man. That
Oh yeah.
that was probably my favorite genre of shows to put on, just because it was so
Mhm,
refreshing and it was so fun and
mhm.
goofy.
And it was so different. And then
Yeah.
that was actually the first time I'd ever seen Ailstorm, and I just remember them being so fucking drunk that it was so great. It was like so like
Mm.
I think it was their bassist, if I remember correctly, didn't realize that he was unplugged for most of the set because he like tripped over the cord or something like that. He was like unplugged half the set. I was
That's
like, oh my God.
awesome.
I remember
I
that. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So I had one of the first times I had Tyr, Ailstorm, and Sweetacra, and I did them
Uh-huh.
over at the Jumping Turtle one night.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the whole tour package come over to my house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my house had bad reception. And I mean, we had the merch, we had everyone there except for like the tour manager and the bus driver. And,
Mm-hmm.
they stayed to do business on the bus or whatever. And we just had a great freaking time. A lot of stuff I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I don't really want to repeat here because it was a little wild going on with some of the groupies that followed.
Of
But
course.
everyone was schmammered except for Chris was not drinking too much
No?
that first
Oh.
night.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember Danny, the guitar player, got so hammered he threw up in my front yard. And I mean, it was just chunks, and everyone's like, "God, dude, how'd you do that? Like, do you not chew your food?" Or, and we were partying until the sun came up, and then we
Uh-huh.
loaded literally about 18 people into my F-150. I had
Oh
people on the
no.
bed, I had people on the floor. I mean, it was like, it was wild. And I got them all back to the bus, but we were going out and we stopped an extra 5 minutes because we had like ants that were the freaking size of a quarter, and they came out of the
Uh-huh.
middle of nowhere and just cleaned up Danny's mess in the front yard, and
Uh-huh.
everyone was just tripping on it, and like it was all clean like within a day, man. Those ants got a feast.
Mm-hmm.
But we got back to the bus, and the tour manager couldn't get a hold because I had no cell phone reception at this place, so
Mm-hmm.
she couldn't get a hold of anyone, and she was flipping out because we made it there 10 minutes until bus call, and I had
Oh no.
everybody on the tour package in my truck all at the same time.
Oh my God.
So yeah,
Man. Oh, that was
sorry man, I keep on getting sidetracked, but
you're all
it's
good.
Yeah.
That's all good. That's what this is all about, man. This is what we're all about. We're all it's all casual, man. Basically, it's all casual, for sure. But with that, because I do remember that that the last night that I was there too with it, um, it was there was a band called Ride. I remember was there too. They were really
Oh,
good. Yep.
right. Yeah.
And then I think there was and then I think like Belphegor too. And then I remember
Belf
Belphegor was
I loved Belphegor. That was my first
uh,
sellout show was Belphegor.
was Belphegor. Oh
Yep.
man.
At Jumping Turtle.
And jumping? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And because I saw them, I think at Ramona though. Saw them at the Ramona main stage, and
Yep.
then I just was like, I kept thinking it was Arnold Schwarzenegger saying like "Hello Ramona" because it sounded like he was like "Hello Ramona." Oh, what's up? I was like, "Whoa, okay." But then I'm like, and I couldn't really see that. I'm like right up in front of the stage, and I couldn't even see him. What the hell? They're right in front of me, but I can't see them because the way the lighting was. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
dude, it created this even weirder kind of like vibe to it, but it was so cool. It was so loud. I loved it. You know what I mean? Get to
Yeah.
see that. It was.
God, that room, everyone said I was crazy for putting shows there. But
Hmm.
dude, it was such an amazing room.
Hmm.
And it was kind of cool because the owner didn't know what to do with it. And when I went in there, there was two speakers sitting on tables. That was the
Hmm.
PA system, just literally like two speakers. Um, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, dude, you could really make something. And dude, we had a killer sound system, we had the killer lighting in there, and the
Hmm.
acoustics. You could not beat the acoustics because that was an old like 1940s movie theater. So
Hmm.
everything was just acoustically perfect, and
Hmm.
the backstage was nice. Oh man, it's like if you put that room anywhere else in San Diego, it would
Uh-huh.
have been the biggest thing ever. And
Hmm.
we did good out there. I mean, we had that place packed a lot, you know.
Hmm.
We had some
But
great shows.
anytime I show up there, it was always packed. And the thing is, because my sister lives in Ramona, so I would just go and like stay at her house. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? After getting a little bit hammered, I just go stay at her house. But then
Nice.
it was like, but it was it was nice, getting to do that and then getting to know that somebody at least was promoting metal in San Diego. You know what I mean? Or in the San Diego County area, San Diego proper. Were there ever any bands that you wished you could have gotten that you weren't able to actually get on the bill?
Um, okay, it's funny. If you ask me now, it would be different than if you ask me then.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll go if you ask me then. I came real close to getting Mayhem.
Ooh.
Um, so I would have liked to do them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I came really close. Oh, Children of Bodom. I would have loved to book them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cradle of Filth might have been too big for my room, I think.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's one other one, and I had them for a minute, and something happened. Um, Behemoth.
Behemoth. Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I think Nurgle was battling his cancer at that time.
Mm.
So,
Another killer
yeah,
band
so
live. Another killer band.
yeah, and oh, and then King Diamond. I was a
Ooh.
huge, huge King
Oh
Diamond
my
fan.
God.
So yeah, I would have done King Diamond and Merciful Fate. One thing. So I say then. Now it's a little different, and I hate getting preachy, but I lost my dad in 2019 through a divorce, and
My
I
apologies.
did start going to church, started finding
Mm-hmm.
faith, read the Bible, and I won't get too much into this, but I still love a lot of the music, but some of the bands that were kind of overtly satanic, uh, they sound a little different to me now. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying don't listen to it or whatever, but it just sounds
Mm-hmm.
different for me.
Hmm. Right.
Um, so yeah, would I go see King Diamond? I'd probably go see King Diamond again, but I'm not. God, I mean, I remember there was like probably 6 months in a row that you couldn't get King Diamond out of my CD player. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Well, it's the same thing too. Like I think I have like wallpaper sometimes. I rotate different wallpapers on my phone, and like King Diamond is among that rotation. All
yeah,
the time. King
oh yeah.
Diamond a lot.
Dude, the albums were so cool, man. Voodoo
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
Puppet Master, I always dug. God, all of them were just so cool, and even the Merciful Fate albums, man.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just it was awesome. So
Did you ever? I'd heard that you'd booked OTEP once. Was it the band OTEP or
uh,
no? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's been a few other interviews I've had too where some people have had some different stories about that, different tour stories of her. So I was
Hmm.
kind of like, okay. Like a band American Overdose that they're from Portland,
Hmm.
Oregon. And they had some pretty their singer had some pretty interesting things to say. Apparently that went viral, what he said before about her. But it was like I guess it's like something about she's apparently not very, from what I'm told, very not, it doesn't treat the other bands very well or something like that.
That's correct. Oh, there
Hmm.
you are. Okay.
Hmm.
So, you know what? She was really a miserable person, and I don't speak badly of anybody,
Hmm.
but she does. I don't know. In my opinion, she does not deserve to have a career in music.
Hmm.
What she did with me, to begin with, it's like she wanted all the hospitality, and then the
Hmm.
day of, after I got all the groceries, and she was a hard one to shop for.
Hmm.
There was a She was a pain in the ass on her hospitality writer. Then she tried to extort me for a buyout in addition to it. And
Uh-oh.
the other band said, yeah, she does that to every promoter. And
Hmm.
oh no, we didn't want that. We wanted a buyout. We told you no, because I went through it and we went through and I line itemed
Hmm.
out a lot of the stuff like we normally do. And they say
Uh-huh.
she does that, and then she pockets all the money, and they'll have 4 or 5 bands on the bill, and she'll keep every penny of it, and the other bands wouldn't get a penny of it.
Oof. Yep, I've heard
So
that one. Hmm.
yeah, and then so we were at Ramona, and Ramona, you get the as Barack Obama was president at that time, so you think she would have been
Hmm.
happy. But there's a lot of conservatives in Ramona, and she saw some bumper stickers or whatever that made her mad, and all she did was call people inbreds and this and that. And I had the agent on the phone, and he was trying to get me to book, or I think I called him. I'm like, cancel the show with her, dude. I never want to see this bitch again. You know,
Hmm.
she is rotten to the crowd. She is rotten to everybody, dude. She should be a freaking homeless. Sorry, um,
It's all
I
good.
she would be the only one that I speak poorly of because she's just
Hmm.
miserable, you know.
Hmm.
So,
Right. Well, that was.
um,
Go ahead. Sorry.
oh, I had them. I think it was the last day of tour, and all the bands were trying to get a picture,
Uh-huh.
together with the whole tour package, and she refused to come off the bus. So everybody, her whole band, all the bands, everybody got in the group picture, but she was too good to come out and get a picture for the end of the tour. So
Man.
yeah.
Yeah, that was there was a few of my friends even in the Michigan scene have said something about that too because I'm originally from Michigan, and it's like a lot of them were telling that too, like some of their friends' bands had opened up for her, and
Mm.
the locals, like she was just like nasty to them and stuff like that, and like I guess there's something about like you're not allowed to sell merch during her set.
Yeah, I heard that too. I don't remember if that
Um,
was with mine or not, but I basically I got over her shit real quick. So I wasn't a fan, and um there's only been 2 or 3 tour managers that ever pissed me off.
Mhm.
And tour managers and bands are a little separate. And sometimes bands use the tour manager to do the dirty work, of course.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just yeah, I wasn't having it with her at all. So
For sure.
yeah.
I didn't mean to open a can of worms with that or anything like that, but it was just kind of like, I just had, been because I'd heard some things from people before, other promoters as well. So
Yeah, and in 20 years, if you ask me of who the worst person in the whole that I ever worked with was, it's OTAP. Yep,
yeah,
and
definitely.
that is hands down just sucked. Everything was crap about it. You know.
I see though, you have a lot of Transformers in the back there. That's awesome. I mean, like, what,
Uh,
like, so you've been a collector for a long time or what?
oh man, okay. I'll give the
Mhm.
yeah, I've got a few here. Uh,
Ah, okay.
so yeah, no, I've been collecting since they came out,
Hmm.
and since I got out of music, I actually, and even at the end at Brick by Brick, I did a couple shows that were related.
Hmm.
And one of my shows I did in 2019 at Brick by Brick, we did a reveal. I got the show sponsored by Hasbro a little bit,
Uh-huh.
and we had the guy that did the he was the composer for the Transformers the movie, the
Hmm.
1986 one.
Hmm.
And in that show, we revealed Unicron, which is that big gigantic planet there.
Oh man.
Okay,
Hmm.
so that's a 20-pound transformer. It's about 30 inches from ring to
Hmm.
ring, and it's about 30 inches tall when you transform them. It was about
Oh man.
$800.
Ooh.
And it's the first time, it's the most expensive transformer Hasbro ever did.
Hmm.
Um, it was a total like experiment, and we did the reveal there for that,
Hmm.
and got me in real good with the brand.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, actually got introduced to the Hasbro guys earlier by Gerardo that used to run Nuclear Blast, because he is a really big
Oh.
GI Joe fan,
Hmm.
and he's actually working with Hasbro still. They're working on if you're a super GI Joe nerd.
Oh,
So,
okay.
uh, but anyways, he's working on a Cold Slither album, which was from one episode of a cartoon. It's the new San Diego Comic Con exclusive. It's the
Hmm.
GI Joe Dreadnoks, and they're in a band,
Okay.
and he put together a band, and they're releasing an album as Cold Slither, and that's Gerardo from Nuclear Blast. So,
Jeez. Oh
yeah,
man.
so he introduced me. I got to be a producer and a writer on and a director on a project. It was in movie theaters. It was some extra stuff for the 35th anniversary of the 86 movie. And we got a little red carpet in Hollywood with
Fuck.
it. I had a bunch of the voice
Oh.
actors. I worked on it with the original writer of the movie, and he's a
Uh-huh.
producer on the cartoon. So
Mm.
that's been. I got kids now, so it's harder to do the shows, but that's been
Mhm.
kind of scratching my creative outlet, that I used to get from doing the shows. So,
Definitely. Definitely. Because yeah, I was noticing that and I'm like, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be more in there. You
oh
know
yeah,
what I mean? You know?
you name it, I probably have it, to be
I
honest.
was like,
So, and
definitely.
you can dig deep on there, and you can
Mhm.
try and stump me, and
Uh,
I'll probably beat you. You know.
right. It's all
So
good. Yeah.
yeah,
No problem. But yeah, that's I see. At least that's the thing too. Like with metalheads and everything like that too. Like what people don't realize about it is that we're all like just gigantic nerds. We're all just a bunch of
yeah,
gigantic nerds. You know what I
totally.
mean?
Yeah, we appreciate art. We appreciate passion. I think
Hmm.
and the people that go and really refine their art. So um,
Definitely.
and that's what's so cool with metal is it's not just a basic rock. It's like it's composed. There's a lot of thought into a lot of it.
Hmm.
There's a lot of technical workmanship.
Hmm.
People are genuinely proud of their craft.
Hmm.
And other music is good, but it's different. It scratches a different itch than I think metal does.
It does. Yeah, that's true. And it's actually after I left San Diego the last time, in around 2010, I ended up in the Philippines, because finally get to meet the family that I never got to meet and everything like that. My mom offered to, send me to college out there fully and everything. She was from the Philippines, may she rest in peace. But it was like, um, I get out there, and the first thing I said asked my cousins, I'm like, where's all the metal shows at? And then they helped me out to find all these metal shows and everything like that. And then we ended up going to some show. I can't remember where in the province it was. It was some bar called like the Blue Cocoa Bar. And I get in there, and then I'm thinking, I'm expecting to see like these gigantic stacks and everything like that. No, these guys have these little tiny practice amps, but they're mic'd up, and you got these little, you got these people like in this like janky drum set with this like black metal band called Mordor. They get in there and they got like this heavy, they get this really raw sounds like Dark Throne, and I'm just like, dude, what the fuck is this? This is so cool. And then I'm like watching them, and and then I got into the scene about a year later. As a matter of fact, I got into the scene. I got into like a hardcore band first, a band called Soul Incinerator. We actually ended up getting a following through a lot of people. I ended up
Nice.
in a black metal band called Basilisk, which I ended up doing vocals and bass originally. Then I just ended up jumping up to vocals. And
That's the band out
then
in San Diego, right?
no, that was a band that I didn't. It was Philippines. Yep,
Okay, okay.
Basilisk. Yeah, and then we ended up going on hiatus with Basilisk, an indefinite hiatus for a little bit because we all had like different projects we were all doing. Our guitar player was in a band called Tyranny of Solidity. Our keyboardist was in another band called Mike at War, so she was always busy too, and our drummer was in another band as well. And so and then she calls me up one day. Our keyboardist is like, she's like, I talked to Mike. I'm like, okay, so what you talk to him about? She's like, I want to put Basilisk back together. And I'm like, you want to put Basilisk back together? I'm like, okay, so what's it? I'm like, so what's in it for me? What's in it for everybody else? And she's like, I don't know. She's like, I just missed it. I want to do it. And then all of a sudden, no more than like two or three practices in, she hits me up and she's like, Colin, I did something. She's like, I hope you and Mike aren't going to be mad at me about this. I'm like, what? She's like, I sent our demo over to some record executive here in the Philippines. I was like, and why would you do that? I'm like, it wasn't mastered. It wasn't mastered.
Mm,
It sounds like, it sounds like my vocals it sounds like somebody stepping on my balls or something. They're singing it, and then she's like, no, no, no. She's like, his wife just gave it to him. He's listening to it right now, and I'm like, okay. And then, um, turns out that as soon as there was something, I guess he said something like he liked the way that the keyboards were like the synths and everything like that, and so
mm,
he wanted to meet with us like that following weekend. We went down to his house, and me and her did, and I was thinking it was to be some like big mansion or something like this. It's this little tiny like 2 or 3 bedroom house, right? We get in there. It's got the big old sign with the Crisella Records thing on the front. He picks us up in this because at first I was also expecting maybe like some big like expensive van or something like that. He's coming in or some big like expensive vehicle. He picks us up in this like beat up old Toyota van. And at first I
mm,
kind of look over it and I'm like this. I'm like we're gonna get killed. We're gonna get
mm,
killed. I know we're gonna get killed right now. And then because at first, I was thinking maybe I'm like, are you sure that you? I'm like, are you sure you vetted these guys? Are you sure these guys are 100% legit? And then he gets out, and he's got like he looks like he's maybe like some sort of like a goth band or something like that. He gets out, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, okay, he's legit.
mm.
That's him. And then he gets us in there, and we're just talking with him, and then um maybe a couple weeks later, he sent over the contract. We all got signed.
Nice.
But the problem was we weren't able to ever utilize that contract because no more than maybe 2 or 3 months after we got signed, I think like I ended up getting into a really bad accident and haven't been able to get back in the music scene since. Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. It
Uh,
was just like because it was like what got me was it was like all of a sudden it's like man we're there we've got it. I mean it's not exactly a major label deal. It's still it's an independent but still it's like it's there.
yeah.
We had our foot in the door, and then all of a sudden it was like it just got ripped away. You know what I mean? And I'm
Mm,
like damn it. You know what I mean? I was like I was so there. I was right there. I could touch it. You know what I mean? And then
dude, it's a
yeah.
big step, man.
Hmm.
I used to tell bands because I did a lot of artist development. I taught classes too. I did like
Hmm.
a 12-week program.
Uh-huh.
I didn't charge much for it. It was like $20 a band or something like that. I
Sure.
just wanted them to
Hmm.
have a little skin in the game so they keep showing up.
Hmm.
But yeah, I always, that was like one of my big things. It's like
Hmm.
the metal industry in particular, it's tough because
Hmm.
it's not like climbing a ladder, it's like climbing a flight of stairs, is the way I put it.
Hmm.
It's like you work so hard to get your
Hmm.
demo done, right? And you feel
Hmm.
like you're on top of the world. But as soon as you finish that one thing, you realize that
Hmm.
you're on the very bottom of the next step, looking up, and
Uh-huh.
then you work and work and work, and then you get to the
Uh-huh.
top of that step. And it's so hard to climb up, but it's really easy to fall down a step or two or three,
It
you know?
is.
And
Yup.
I always give props every band that ever tried, every band that ever stepped foot on stage,
Hmm.
no matter how much they, I don't want to say sucked,
Hmm.
um, maybe lack of experience. Sometimes the bands don't always have the right chemistry at first, and they each have their talents, but they don't know how to work together. So
Right.
eventually, I've seen bands. One of my favorite musicians came from this band. His name was Joey. Gosh, he went by a different last name, but he was in this band, and I just remember it was the worst band I ever saw, and they were doing Slayer covers and stuff like that, and they were
Uh-huh.
so bad, but they were trying so hard. I just like fell in love with them, and I started working with them. They were
Hmm.
chaotic control, I think,
Hmm.
but I liked them. I liked the vibe, and they got better really quickly. And I ended up working with Joey and several different projects, later on. But
Hmm.
I always look for the heart because I felt if the bands had the right heart,
Hmm.
the talent would come.
Of
Um,
course.
and sometimes even if you don't have like the skill, if you're not Ingve Malmsteen or Neil Peart, the chemistry, the chemistry is a talent of its own as well. You know,
Hmm.
if that makes any
Well,
sense.
man. So, the one thing too about with the having been in the Philippine scene, it's definitely very different than anything I'd ever seen because I didn't expect there to be that many people there that are actually into it. And then when we got obviously we're playing mostly like little dive bars and just little things like that. But to me, that's the type of gig that I like. I like that, I like playing floor shows. I like playing those ones, they're like where like the crowd is literally right there, right in front of you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You can feel their energy. They're bringing it right back to you. And that was what we did like with Soul Incinerator. I think a lot of the time because obviously being a hardcore band, get the really heavy breakdowns and all that stuff that we're doing. And um, what I loved was that was like sort of it was like that it could go completely out of control in any second. We knew it too because with the way the pits were going, especially with how small the bars were, and people were doing circle pits and like the all the kicks and stuff like that. I seriously kept thinking I'm gonna get hit really hard one of these days. I know this. I know I'm gonna get hit one of these days, but I never did. But it was just I loved that energy and feeding that off. And like one time, a band called Natal Cleft. They actually just got signed to originally, recently. They're from Cebu, Philippines. Their lead singer first heard Basilisk one time when we released the demo, and he was just like, he's like, dude, you become my vocal idol. So me and him became like really good friends. They came and they stayed at my house that I was at in the Philippines, and he asked me, he's like, dude, he's like, do you want to go up and do Particles of Hate with me after your set? I'm like, okay, so do that. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. So I go up looking like a big hardcore kid. I got this big like gray backpack on. I've got this Pistons jersey on. And I'm looking all like this hardcore kid with a backwards hat on. And then he's like, and I'm sitting here singing all this like black metal kind of vocals. And then
Hmm.
he said all he remembers is looking over like this. And he saw me for like 2 seconds on stage next to him. 2 seconds later, he sees me with my arm around this kid like this in a headlock. And I'm like, yeah and stuff like that, and just, like screaming like that, and like this kid's like, like rocking people all over the place and stuff like that, and he's like looking around like, dude, this kid's fucking insane. Like what the hell is going on?
That's awesome.
Because we get done with the song. I get back up on stage with him, and then he's like, dude, where the hell were you? He's like, I saw you for like 2 seconds in there with that kid in the headlock. He's like, where were you the whole time? I'm like, I'm sitting around here like putting the microphone in people's faces and stuff like that, and just like grabbing a hold of people. I'm like 2 inches away from their face, the whole time. And it was like he was and that was when they all said they're like, yeah, you were definitely fucking crazy. You know?
That's awesome, man.
And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
I miss that. I miss that energy and the friendship,
Mhm.
man. I had a guy and he got hit at Jumping Turtle
Oh
at
no.
Deicide. And this was like,
Oh.
this could have been like a lawsuit thing, all that.
Mhm.
No, he wore that with pride and he came out to a million shows after. And he
Mhm.
always like pointed the big scar on his Deicide. Yeah. It
Oh.
was awesome. Like, you know, I don't think I like all the craziness. I don't, my very first show I ever
Mhm.
did, I had a little bit of a lawsuit scare or whatever. It was
Mhm.
all fabricated crap. Is it the Jumping Turtle? And if
Mhm.
some really big overweight girl said she broke her leg at the show, it was
Uh-huh.
at Destruction,
Oh
supposedly.
God. Oh jeez.
I'm like, how could she break her leg and not one person know? We have cameras all over. No
Uh-huh.
one reported it. It didn't come until like 3 months after. Apparently, she had a track record of doing that in different states because she's really
Uh-huh.
big and overweight. And I don't know if she had brittle bones or just weighed too much for him. I
Uh-huh.
never even saw this girl, but um, it was lame, and that almost scared me out of doing shows. Because it happened on my very first big show,
Uh-huh.
national tour, but that was the only one I ever had. So,
Damn.
and I had some scares ish, like
Mhm.
no one like getting carried out in a stretcher or anything, but when you get the
Mhm.
dude's head cut open, I had possessed one time, and Jeff Becerra was hammered, and his
Mhm.
bandmate broke a bottle over his face. You could
Uh-huh.
see his skull and blood pouring down. It was kind of the most metal thing I ever saw in my life, but he went on stage and did his set with blood
Uh-huh.
coming down his face, dude. It was wild.
Oh. All right, so you were mentioning something about as you said Jeff Becerra, right? Had like it was like he was covered in blood, was it, at that show? Mhm.
Jeff got pretty hammered that night. He's in his wheelchair,
Mhm.
and this is over at Jumping Turtle, and he is
Mhm.
throwing out T-shirts and everything. And I think he might have got a little rude with one of the. He had Sadistic Intent as his band,
Mhm.
and he got something with someone's girlfriend or sister-in-law or something,
Uh-oh.
and he broke a bottle over his face, just bam, right on his forehead,
Mhm.
and he had blood pouring down, and everyone's like, I'm getting security. They're like, dude, we got to stop, we need to call an ambulance, blah, blah, blah. And I talked to him. He's like, nah, dude, I'm going to play. I'm good. I'm like, we can
Mhm.
see your skull. He's like, yeah, dude, that's metal, or whatever. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I never really had any business school or safety training. So
Mhm.
my probably not the wisest, but my whole thing was like, fuck it, let's see what happens. So he goes up on
Right.
stage and plays his set with blood pouring down his face, rolls his wheelchair off the stage, and uh, 4 or 5 songs, and goes crowd surfing in his wheelchair. And
Mhm.
it was one of those nights that anyone that was at that show will never forget it till the day they die. So guaranteed.
Damn. Oh hell
Yeah.
yeah. Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some moments like that. There was one as I was talking about before, like we used to do a lot of floor shows, because again, so a lot of those places didn't really have any stages. So, but there was one like the stage was like maybe about 2, maybe 3 inches off the floor, but there's a little lip in it like this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we're in the middle of the show. I'm in front of the stage, which like I always usually always am with my bass and everything, swinging it around like a baseball bat, right? And then I went to step back up onto the stage. My ankle got caught in the little lip of it, and I fell backwards in the middle of the set like that. And then that was thankfully I didn't miss any beat on it, and I don't think anybody even really noticed. It was just like, but I was just kind of like I kind of fall back. I'm like, okay, that's kind of really fucking weird. That's the first time I'd ever fallen down on stage, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
like, and then even it was like the guys didn't even see it. I think maybe our drummer might have seen it, but it was just like and then that was probably the most on stage thing that I ever did, except for when I almost threw a bass amp off the stage because they would backline everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Usually we would just all use the house amps that they had, and there was this one place that we played at. God, I don't even remember what the name of that place is now, but it was like way out in like the provinces, and it's this gigantic stage, huge stage, and you know, our guitar players, they got these really, really nice amps that they were getting to play on and everything like that. And then I get this, it's like this Line 6 bass amp, something like this, a little like one speaker thing that they gave me. And I'm sitting trying to play it, and I can't get any juice out of this thing. You can hear the speaker like, I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, I'm gonna throw this thing freaking out the fucking window, man. What the hell is this thing? And then thankfully my friend Noriel, who was there with me, was helping me. He was a bass player too, so we're trying to get it set to where it sounds decent, where it's not popping or doing all those crazy things. But that entire set, I was so pissed off because I was just like, dude, I'm like, this is not my sound. I sound like shit right now. You can just hear
Mm-hmm.
everything popping and the speakers are busted and blown. And I'm like, damn, dude, that was probably the most vocal I'd ever been about a show.
Yeah.
Those kind of.
But yeah, I remember Slayer for a good decade always seemed to have sound issues, like
Mhm.
that. And you had this one of the biggest metal bands, and it felt like probably a good 3 or 4 times in a row that I saw them.
Mhm.
The sound would just be super bad, like no
Mhm.
guitar in the mix or something like that, or
Mhm.
the monitor was just, I mean, you just heard
Mhm.
the monitor bleeding out, and just I don't know, man. Yeah, it's when you see the super pros have the big sound issues, you don't feel so bad when you get it at the uh, the mid levels or even before that. So
Right, the local levels, yeah, definitely.
yeah.
And it was well, because it was that to me was just like, what the fuck is this thing? I listened to this, and then it was but there was one time I did it too. They because as I was telling you about the stats, right, where Louis, may he also rest in peace,
Yep.
had because obviously everybody knew him as a big professional sound guy. He'd been for for years and years and years all throughout San Diego, and and he even toured with some other bands. But so he taught me how to do some live sound and taught me how to properly wrap cables and do all this stuff and like be sort of like a roadie, as
Mm-hmm.
you were mentioning, you had to be a roadie, but he taught me how to kind of be sort of like a roadie in a way. And so I kind of had to, so every time I go to a show, I'm always listening for the sounds. I'm always kind of like listening. I'm kind of like, okay, okay. I'm like, okay, those speakers are blown. I'm like, that fucking monitor's busted. I'm gonna freaking break the damn thing. You know what I mean? And then, I'm listening to this. And so there was this band Thanatopsia. They were from the Philippines as well. Their singer now lives out there in California. She got a job and lived in California there. But she had actually invited me to come out to the show that one time because she's like, well, you're my friend. I'm like, yeah. She's like, but you're also pretty big. So can you sort of act like my bodyguard? I'm like, why? because she's like, because my ex is kind of trying to stalk me. I'm like, okay, so you want me to basically beat the crap out of somebody, but go to the show? She's like, yeah. She's like, I'm like, okay, whatever. Sure. I'm like, free ride to the show. Hell yeah, I get to go in with the band.
Hey man, you get to save a damsel in distress. That's
Right.
always a good day for us. So,
Right. And so that was just kind of like, I'm hanging out with her. I get in for free. The band's about to go up on stage, and then and I'm listening the whole night. It looked at this like old pole barn out in the middle of nowhere in the province or something like that. And no, they have these speakers that happens to be like a venue in there, if I remember correctly where it was. And then we get in there and I'm listening to the sound and I'm like, okay, I'm like, I can't even hear the guitars. I can't hear these basses. I can't hear anything. And then they're like, well, can you make us sound good? And I was just like, can I make you guys sound good? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, they're like, you said you couldn't hear any of the guitars or anything like that from the other bands. I'm like, okay. And then as they're getting set up, right? I'm sitting helping them with the amps and everything, like getting everything set up for them. I just keep telling everybody, and then I'm like way in the back of the room going like this. I'm kind of like, no, 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 no. I'm like, I can't hear anything. And then so I walked up to the sound guy. Do you have like two condensers? He's like, what? I'm like, do you have two condensers? And he's like, they're like, yeah. I'm like, or any kind of extra microphone at least. I'm like, it doesn't really necessarily need to be a condenser. He's like, okay.
mm,
And then so they give me like these two other vocal mics, and all I did was I actually just draped them both over the thing and taped them over the amps, and
mm,
then I taped one into the actual into the bass drum as well,
mm,
and then I'm like, okay, do it now, and then you just hear everything was like so it was like boom. I was like there, I got you now. I just had to mic everything up for
nice.
everybody. Just like use of like makeshift whatever we have, kind of mics, just drape them over the speaker, boom, and then and it really did sound like it was a huge professional sound system after that. I was just kind of like, wow, I'm cool. That's a win for me. I'm like, if Louis would have heard about that, he'd have been so proud.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah, I remember some of those days, man. Jumping Turtle
Mhm.
had a freaking possessed sound system, man. We would blow
Mhm.
monitors freaking like crazy over there, and no matter what
Mhm.
we did, we'd change it. We'd buy a new one. Oh man, it's just I don't know what
Mhm.
what it was with that. So,
Mhm.
hey, so question because it sounds like you're tied in, with some of the
Mhm.
Filipino scene.
Mhm.
Um, do you know Gwen of Velasco or Ed Talorda?
The names sound familiar. I don't know if I may have met them possibly.
So Ed was in Discord. She was my sound guy for years. Good
Um,
friend. I still talk to him. He still does
mhm.
sound professionally, but like he does like installations. He does it where you can actually make a living and support a family a little bit better now.
Mhm.
But yeah, he is in Discord and Wenna. I had her in another project I did called Unicorn Death for a minute. But she's just a shredder bass player.
Mhm.
Filipino girl, man. You know,
Mhm.
cute girl, sweetheart, like love her to death.
Mhm. Mhm.
Just like I don't think anybody in the world's ever had an issue with her.
Right on.
So yeah.
With the
So I mean,
with
just in
the
San Diego, if she, I still see she's floating around. I think she might be in some tribute bands now. I mean, bass players
mhm.
are always in demand, especially you know,
Definitely. Oh
especially if
yeah.
they've got that charisma too. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, that was actually apparently I didn't even realize that I'd created a reputation for myself out there because for some strange reason. I was always because I've always been influenced by like Les Claypool, and Cliff Burton and all those guys. Peter Steele, even may he rest in peace too. Probably one of my biggest influences, him and Les Claypool. Um, so I would always just come up with these different weird bass lines, and I have a tendency, especially like especially like if you're doing like really really fast like death metal kind of like triplet parts, right?
Mhm.
I have a tendency to move my hand back and forth like this really 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 quick. So like I'm hitting both sides. It's just so it's
Okay.
like it's like matching the double bass pedals, and
Cool. That's
then
cool.
and yeah, and I didn't, like it came out of habit, came out of necessity, and I
Yeah.
kept doing that. And then somebody apparently there was a bass player for one of the bands out there. He's watching. I can see him watching our set. Right, it's from this death metal band. We're these hardcore kids, right? This death metal gig or this mixed gig, and he's looking. He's like, I see him going like, the fuck? As he's looking at my hand like that, and then all of a sudden, at the end of it, he's like, dude. He's like, dude, how did you get your hand to go that fast? He's like, dude, he's like, keeps pointing every time he sees me. He's like, that hand right there, man, that hand right there. He's like, dude, I can't even play that fast. I'm like, what do you? He's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm like, I just do it out of necessity, man. You know what I mean? It's just kind of to match everybody else when I'm doing all those things. And and apparently some people had said that there were a lot of people telling me, which I was kind of like, okay, that's complete bullshit. But when people were like, when they're like, dude, you're probably one of the best one in the scene. I'm like, no, I'm like, thanks, but I'm like, there's so many people that are so much better than I am on this. I'm like, I'm just doing this out of necessity, bro. That's all it is. You know what I mean? But it was, I really appreciated the compliments, but it was like, I just didn't, I never thought that, playing bass a certain way just because I had to do it from necessity was just like with like all of a sudden people would recognize me because like my hand speed and all the, like, and like how accurate I was when I would do all that stuff. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Dude,
Yeah.
there's nothing better than making a mark, dude, and getting people
Mhm.
paying attention to you. You know,
Yeah.
that's always cool. And I also noticed that too. Is from me, the better I was doing, I had a little, you know, I had a lot of people that were on this side, and then I end up with some people on the other side too. So
Right.
I guess that always came with it. But
Mhm.
that's when I guess you're making a mark. So uh,
Definitely.
yeah.
Well,
So
that was like at work, that was like I think it was I credit it kind of with San Diego being or Lestat's Coffee House pretty much getting me like giving me the boost to actually want to keep like doing the bass stuff and like even starting to use effects and stuff because of the open mic nights that they would do even way back in '03 when I was really like that when I was like 19 years old just out of high school, you know what I mean? And Louis basically taking it upon himself to show me, and when I asked him I said I'm like, so out of everybody that performs here, because there's tons of artists that perform at the open mic nights and perform at the coffee house. I'm like, why me? I'm like, why would you, waste your time on this, on this freaking just, super giddy music nerdy kid. He's like, because the first day that I met you, he's like outside at the show, I could see it in your eyes, man. He's like, I knew you wanted it. He's like, I knew you wanted this. He's like, I knew you wanted it more than anybody else.
mhm,
He's like, I knew you
it's
wanted it
true.
more than anybody else. You know what I mean?
That,
And he's,
yep. I picked sound guys like that too. They'd start off,
Mhm.
they were young kids.
Mhm.
I had one kid, he was like getting in trouble in high school and he's coming to shows, and I let
Mhm.
him, stagehand and stage manage, and then
Mhm.
later on he's a sound guy, and then he became a good sound guy,
Mhm. Oh
Um
yeah.
it's really cool. Dude, the stats, so
Mhm.
2003, 2004, did you know Jen from Eight Fraud? Do you remember that band Eight Fraud?
I don't, but I think I may have met her though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so God, for a while we had a recording studio at my house. Okay.
Mhm.
And the guy whose studio was, he was a good friend of mine. His name was Rick Coretti.
Uh-huh.
And he went by Rick Carr. He was Bruce Dickinson's guitar player for his solo
Ooh.
project.
Uh-huh.
And so he played with Adrian Smith, and he engineered the Rob Halford albums and the Bruce
Mhm.
Dickinson albums, as well as like
Mhm.
Metal Church. He had a freaking list, you know. And he was my roommate, like one of the coolest guys ever. He had a little bit of Asperger's, um,
Oh, okay.
and so he would rub people, or basically someone would say something that would set him off. But
Uh-huh.
like honestly, they usually had it coming, but I think
Uh-huh.
he would explode.
Oh,
So
God.
I talked him into letting me do that part of it.
Uh-huh.
But like the stuff they did explode about, it was local band crap. And this wasn't Jen, but it's just because we she recorded with him and everything else. And I remember we would have bands, and we were charging like $15 an hour. Okay,
Damn.
and the gear that he had was, so he was touring on Tyranny of Souls or Chemical Wedding. I forget which one it was.
Okay.
And they cut the tour short because Bruce got back in Iron Maiden.
Mhm.
And Rick went, he was all stoked. He toured Europe and everything. And he got back. And when he checked his bank account, there was like $200,000 or something in his bank account
Oh.
from Bruce. Canceled
Mhm.
shows. Thanks for your help, mate.
Mhm.
Um, and he invested that all in like gnarly studio equipment. And I mean, this guy, like he had that Asperger's, that autism ish spectrum,
Mhm.
like super focused, like knows everything about every piece of recording equipment. And he just sit there, oh, and this is from Germany, and these were the tubes, and they this and this and this. And then someone, and you think you just know about his stuff. No, someone be like, oh, well, I really like the Midas versus the Triton. He's like, no, 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 the Midas is good because of this and this, but you don't get that warm feeling that
Right.
complements with the analog sound that I use on my tape machines. And da da da.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna sound, and like literally he'd go on and on. And I'd sit there like freaking drooling, like trying to absorb all this information. And
Right.
we have all this, like the same mic that Bruce Dickinson recorded his vocals on. That was the mic that we had in our studio.
Uh-huh.
And we'd have people block out a whole day for a 2 hour session
Mm-hmm.
for vocals, 2 hours. So we're making $30 for the whole day. Guy with
Oh
his
man.
credentials. And then they would like cancel or no show or something
Mhm.
like that. And then they try to hit us up for like a discounted rate, like later on, or like, oh, can you give us a couple free hours? And we'd be like, dude,
Shit.
like, we literally blocked out the whole day for $30 and you didn't show. And now you're asking for like a couple free hours or whatever it is. It's like, we're
Right.
not charging $100 an hour. We're not charging
Exactly.
$200 an hour. We're
Mhm.
charging $15. Dude, Rick could go bag like, not bag groceries at the time, but I mean, you could get a freaking menial job and make
Mhm.
13 or $14 an hour with very little skill at that time. And
Mhm.
so, anyways, when bands would pull that, he'd just be like, do they not understand what I'm doing for them? He's like,
Mhm.
I fucking toured with Bruce Dickinson. I did Chemical Wedding. I did Accident of Birth. I did Tyranny of Souls. I did freaking Halford. I did Fight.
Mhm.
And these guys are getting the same treatment that I gave them when I was making, $150 an hour for 15 an hour. And then
Mhm.
he would like just unload on these guys. Like, and I mean, you see his eyes, you motherfucker, totally deserved.
Oh
But,
yeah.
so, and then
Exactly.
oh, that guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
It's always his fault. So,
Mhm. Kind of like
yeah.
what kind of like what that Glenn Fricker from the studios up there in Canada. You know how he's always talking about showing like the stupid musician text or something like that. He always gets. Oh
God,
man.
dude. Yeah. I mean, look, I've been on both sides. I've managed bands and, I
Mhm.
paid to have albums produced and back when I was not making a lot of money,
Mhm.
and I think we got our album done from the band that I managed about
Mhm.
$10,000. And it was a good album. It came out great. Um, but when you're a young band, you're like, dude, we got like the best band ever, and you should feel privileged to record us. And dude, we're gonna make you. And I mean, like that's kind of how you feel, and you're hoping to find somebody that's gonna be like, oh, dude, your band's so good, I'll pay you to record it. Like
Right.
that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
the reality is that's just not how it works. But bands when
No.
you're young and you have that mindset, you know,
Mhm.
and then you
Right.
so anyone that's going to charge you is ripping you off. So
Exactly. Oh yeah, that was. I mean, I was also kind of maybe that kid in high school, like so enthusiastic, you know what I mean? But then it was like, once you get into the real world and you start to realize that, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, you should probably tone it down a notch. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, reality changes things, and
Hmm.
um, and I would tell bands that was one of the things that I taught them in class. I was real big with off the court and on the, you know,
Hmm.
um, on the court, that is like perfecting your stage show. That's like writing your music. That's, getting your show, getting your set dialed in, just really explosive. But
Hmm.
I'm like, that's the product, but you guys are also the salesman for your band too. And you have to work on your off the court stuff, which is marketing your band. It's going out, it's humping legs and getting people
Uh-huh.
to want to come and see you
Hmm.
because no one can sell your band better than you
Hmm.
know? And I could put you on, whatever show there is. But if I put a local show on, I could have a flyer and,
Hmm.
we could have whatever bands, Mithrium, Chaotic Order, Damn Cyan,
Hmm.
Basilisk. Well, to someone that's never heard of any of these bands, you might as well
Uh-huh.
say Paper Plates, Spoons and Forks, Vanilla Ice Cream.
Exactly.
It's just words. Why
Hmm.
why are people gonna go to that show and how are they gonna know about you?
Right. Hmm.
So you got to go and find ways to hustle and figure out where to hustle. and figure out,
Exactly.
and I'm like, the best way is by going to shows. But there were so many bands, especially at that point, that never
Hmm.
went to shows. They never supported other local bands.
Hmm.
They never got engaged in the scene. And,
Hmm.
they'd get their girlfriends to show up, and then, they would never go and talk to anybody after they'd load up and then they'd leave. And I'm like, and you
That is
guys
a fact.
wonder why literally you sell four tickets and that's to your mom, the same guy's mom and dad, the other guy's moms and dads, they don't even buy them.
Right. That
So I'm
happened.
like, like you gotta put in the effort, and their bands would be badass. I mean, their bands would shred.
Hmm.
But you can have a killer band, but if no one knows about it,
Right.
you're not worth anything. So
Exactly. Well,
yeah,
with the
it's
advent of
music
especially,
business. Yeah,
well, with the advent of course YouTube and and Spotify now too. I mean, you can find a lot of different bands now too. But because I remember back then though, was just like,
yeah.
um, even when I was
MySpace
in like,
days, man.
what's that?
This is like MySpace days.
Oh yeah, MySpace. Oh
Yep.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
MySpace worked though. MySpace worked really well.
It
So
did. It
yeah,
did. And there was like just all kinds of random shit that you'd find on there. It was really cool. But then it was
yeah.
like, oh, but I remember like even way back then, even to get like a local show, I was like, how, even in Michigan, it's like, well, how do you even get these things? And they're like, wait, you got to make like a press kit. I'm like, a press kit? I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then it was like, because before, the way that me and my friends would do it in high school, right? Because my friend had like a couple punk bands, and obviously I was also in a couple bands in high school. The way we would all do it was we would just do DIY shows. We'd like
Hmm.
rent out like some township hall, out in the middle of nowhere, or like some like an old church basement or something like that, and we just do DIYs. So we were never really, really, versed into like, hey, the logistical parts of it. Like we never knew like that we had to do like press kits for like to other bigger promoters and stuff like that. So that was kind of like that was kind of a really interesting um aspect of it later on. Thankfully, I got into a band before called Hellcore back in like 2004. I did like one show with them. It's just like the vibe just wasn't there. You know what I mean? For me, like I did the show,
Yeah.
they were really cool. It's just like the singer didn't rub me the right way. It was one of those things of, a comment that he made about basically telling me that, with how wild I am, he's like, if you hit me with that bass, I'm gonna whip your ass kind of thing. I'm like, okay, but then I'm sitting over here like, okay, our guitar player, who was also drunk, I keep getting poked by the headstock of his guitar, and he keeps hitting me with his guitar. I'm like, okay, but and he hit our singer with the guitar a couple times. So he hits you, but then you hit me, and then I'm like, okay, and then then the whole race thing happened, the whole ethnicity thing happened, and then I was kind of like, oh Jesus.
Yeah.
And then I was like, so I just kind of like I wasn't feeling them after a while, after I did that, and I was just kind of like, it was a fun show that we did. Thankfully, I was able to get on it because thankfully I was able to get into that band, and we were able to get that show because my cousin was the promoter for that venue at the time. So she got us all on that show, which was cool. But I don't think anybody really had any idea as to how much of I guess, a white supremacist the lead singer was. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Yup. And it was just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh man. And then a couple of years later, when I tried to start a death metal band, my buddy Ernie, which he goes by the nickname Black. He's a black guy, but no pun intended is what he says. But he's a bass
Mhm.
player. You know, but we got I hooked up with him, and then it was the same thing that he had with that singer when he was in a different band with him. It was the same thing. It was like because of the fact of him being a black guy, it was a totally different, thing like that. And then he's like, I totally don't blame you for leaving, dude. I totally don't blame you for just completely ghosting on him, dude. Like, yeah, because it was
Yeah.
like, but it was just that was just how that was. But then, that gave me experience learning how to learn all these different things too, how to learn all to learn what not to do in a band. You know what I mean? And to kind of just
Hmm.
think to myself like, I don't I'm not going to sit here and make myself into a target just because of of this, just because I want to play metal. I can find people that are actually more accepting of this, of the fact that I'm actually of mixed race, instead of and to that point it really didn't even matter, to be honest. You know what I mean? you
You know,
know
one thing, metal is always very accepting, I noticed,
hmm hmm
I don't think there's maybe one or two literally like rumors of someone maybe saying something,
hmm
but um, I don't think, yeah, I mean, granted, now where I was at was always a different thing, and I was all, people always acted one way in front or different in front of me, in front of everyone else. but that's one thing I don't think I ever really noticed too much of it in 20 years. And like I
Hmm.
said, I think there's rumors of one guy, I don't want to like name any names, that
Right.
may have said some things in the past or whatever, especially drunk, but
Hmm.
that was like a hateful person.
Hmm.
And again, I take things with a grain of salt, dude. Everyone's made an off-color joke. Everyone's,
Hmm.
some of them are
Right.
fun,
Right.
uh,
Right.
and it doesn't matter what race, but like, um, you know, but to actually have like the hate, um, is it's kind of dumb,
Right. Exactly. Hmm.
so,
Well, that was
and
a
it's sad. It's sad because why do you hate someone over just something they were born, like
exactly
you have no control over anything. You're a
right.
metalhead,
Right.
so
And that was
yeah,
actually that was what I loved about that scene in the Philippines too, was that it was incredibly accepting. You know what I mean? Even though
yeah,
I'm a foreigner, even though I you can tell with an American accent that I have and all that stuff, but most of the people in the scene could speak English anyway. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And a lot of them were pretty fluent in it. But it was like but it was like the second that I even stepped through the doors from one of the shows, immediately they were accepting. They were
Hmm.
just like, "Whoa, dude," and then they're like, "Oh, this is my band, this is this band, whatever it is." And then, hey, this is our bass player, this is our guitar player, this is, and then I started to network with everybody. I started to like get to know everybody, and then now even to this day, I still stay in contact with them. A bunch of the people that I knew, I've interviewed already on this. Like my friend Lou Bell, she actually is in a band called Descant Got. She was also in a band called Zeno Devada Project, which a lot of people say she's like the Angela Gasso of the Philippines. Like she sounds like she's at that. She doesn't
Hmm.
really. When you look at her though, like if you were to actually see that episode on our website on our YouTube, you would never think it. If you actually look at her, if you were to actually see her in public, right? She doesn't wear like the metal shirts a lot of the time or anything like that. She's just like if you were to see her in public, you would never think about it until all of a sudden you see her on stage. And then you're just like, okay, wait, what's this going to be? Is she going to be singing? And then 2 seconds later, she's just
Oh yeah.
screaming her ass off.
Oh, were you ever a Psy fan? Did you ever listen
Oh,
to Psy from Japan?
sorry, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so they had Dr.
Yeah.
Mechanable. So from what
Mhm.
I understood, this was like just the Japanese overachiever. Like she was like kind of like a fetish model, and she was like
Mhm.
a doctor, like not like I think she's like a neurology or brain surgeon, something wild like that.
Uh-huh.
She played the saxophone. She came out just smoke showing, like tiny like lingerie, just all sorts of skin showing, and I mean she's gorgeous on stage, and she's you know playing
Mhm.
keyboard, and it's
Right.
like dang, dude, like
Right. Mhm.
so. Yeah, just wow, yeah,
Yep. That was what I didn't, because I didn't expect it. Like, because I'd known about before I went out there. I'd known about a few like female fronted bands because I was really, really into like female fronted bands at the time, you know.
yep,
And when I got out there, I'd known a few of them. I'd known about a few of them, right? Like Voice of Tranquility out in the Philippines, they were there. Their singer is
mm,
now, I think, is she in the States or in Canada? I can't remember where she's at now. And then there's a bunch of other bands that were out there that were all female fronted. And then
yeah,
that was when I got turned on to Descant Got, and I found them. I saw them, and then I ended up kind of getting to know them, and then getting to know all that, and then got to know like obviously Thanatopsy, my friend Pat, who's now in California. She lives out there, and then um, God, who else was there? There was like a band called Leonora. Their old singer is now living in California as well, and
mm,
but yeah, she was really cool too. So there's a lot of these different people, and it was just kind of, and then it just all kind of snowballed out from there. You know what I mean? I just started like meeting a lot of different people and working in a lot of different bands and different things, and then it was just now all of a sudden, you know, I gained a huge knowledge of that entire scene and how it works now, or how it used to work back then. I don't know how it is now, but it's
mm,
and then come to find out that my buddy Marco, who goes by Jester, his nickname was Jester. He was a drummer for a band called Divine Sacred Order out there, and he's from Syracuse, originally, and
mm,
then my God, like I became very good friends with them. So it was like, thankfully, I wasn't the only American that was there. There was like at least every time he'd come to shows, he
Yeah.
was also an American, but he'd been living out there with his mom and everybody else like that for so many years in this big compound that they have, like, and he's got this extra house on the side there where like all of his like his drums and all the amps and stuff were inside that room. And oh man, it was really cool. So I got to like meet all kinds of different people. So cool.
Yeah. It's cool too. I love the female vocalists. I really dug they called it the Beauty and the Beast vocals,
Uh-huh.
with the call and returns, a lot of it. I just dug those bands that would do that.
Hmm.
Cradle of Filth did some of that, but Leaves Eyes was a big one.
Uh-huh.
And then God, when they first started, or maybe as their second or third album, and Lacuna Coil kind of had that going on for a minute. And I like that. Elevite, yeah, with Anna,
Right.
and when they, I liked when they would, have like that soft and sweet and like really pretty, and then it comes in with a,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep.
and the contrast was just, it was
Mhm.
awesome, man. And it gave it power and elegance at the same time, man. It was fantastic.
It did.
Yeah,
Yep. Oh yeah.
yeah.
And that's actually the that's what I loved about so what band isn't that really? Oh, there's like actually there's another band I just noticed what the hell's their name? This new band that is posted yesterday. Hold on, let me just take a look at it, see what it was. Um there's one I just heard them the other day. This band called Face Yourself. The singer, I was like, dude, I was like, is she really getting that deep when she sings? I was like, holy crap, like, I mean, now girls are starting to do like a lot more gutturals and stuff now too. And I never
Yeah.
thought that would be like, I never thought that somebody would get that deep, like they could go that low. And then it's like, dude, it's coming out of that. It's coming out of a small, and it's like, coming out, how is this even possible that they're doing this? And then, that was what always, you know, kind of got me or impressed me about like the female vocals was like
Mm.
how they can do the sort of like the Smeagol voice and then the you know
Hmm.
and then just go
Yeah.
straight for the like the straight like gutturals
Yeah.
all that stuff and it was oh man.
Such a trip, and for them to do all that. Actually, speaking of the guttural vocals,
Hmm.
are you a Cattle Decapitation fan by
Oh
chance?
yeah, oh yeah.
So Travis, I still talk with Travis quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
I got to do that Transformers project, and
Mhm.
how into Cattle Decap are you? Like, I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm friends with them. I booked them many times, but
Uh-huh.
like, if you ask me to name like three of their albums, don't ask me that, but you
Right,
know,
exactly, yeah. Mhm.
but so Travis, he's a big GI Joe guy and a Transformer guy, a little bit Transformer, but um, he knew I was the Transformer guy, and he is known he for his vocals in the 1986 Transformers movie, Unicron, that big planet I showed you. He was
Uh-huh.
voiced by Orson Welles, and
Uh-huh.
he had this big, very, and they had to mess with it in the studio a little bit, because
Hmm.
the dude, like, he died 2 weeks after he like recorded his parts. But that was Travis was going around impersonating Unicron when he was like a little kid, and that's how he got his cattle decap vocals.
Oh,
So
it's really good. Okay.
yeah,
Hmm.
so when I got to be a producer on it, and I got to do these stop motions with, I had a lot of the original voice actors in it, and
Hmm.
I'm like, Travis, be my Unicron, and he's just
Hmm.
like, did I don't even know if I got the whole sentence out of my mouth. He's like, yeah, it's super down, because he's doing a lot
Hmm.
of voiceover work at video games and stuff as well.
Hmm.
And he came in and he nailed it. And people are still like, why don't they get Travis back as Unicron for the movies and this and that, and he
Hmm.
was so good in it. And I'm actually hoping, I do like toy reviews with my kids right now,
Hmm.
on YouTube. It's kind of a fun hobby, and
Okay.
just bonding stuff for us to do. Man, yeah, I super appreciate you having me on, and I'm having a total blast. Yeah, this it was such a fun run, man. It really was, dude. I
Definitely.
loved it, and I think you had a good time in it, and it's awesome to see you still, being able to stay involved, and still get your thumbprint, on the music that we love.
Definitely. you know. And it's, again, we thank you so much for coming on, Joe. This is so cool. It was like really cool to get to talk to you, at least, talk to you again because I hadn't talked to you in a long time, and then it was, but to get to at least talk to you, get kind of your insight, some of your memories and things like that, how you were doing, and just to, all that. And of course, you're always welcome to come back anytime you want.
Yeah, if you need me, give me like a week notice, and if you're just hard up for somebody, give me a call, and if I can make it on, because it was 20 years of just amazing memories of wild times, and
Mhm.
99% of it was just awesome, and then there was OTEP, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. All right, man. Well, again, you guys, for anybody out there, again, this is Joe Troutman, legendary promoter from San Diego. All right. If ever you guys ever see this guy, just throw him the horns when you see him, man. I'm sure he'd appreciate it. And remember, always like and subscribe, like our Spotify, like our YouTube. Help us out, man. Come on. We got to become legendary, right? All right. Thanks again,
Yeah,
Joe.
one viewer at a time, man. That's how you do it. So
Definitely, man. All right. Thanks a lot,
awesome.
Joe.
All right.
All
Hey,
right.
thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
No problem. All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.